Hi showmates, in this video we'll be learning how to make this beautiful dress. I made use of a chantilly net for the yoke, for the sleeves, as well as the pleated cape around the yoke area. So if this looks like what you like to learn, then watch this video to the very end. My name is Veronica Adams Eze. Welcome to Veronica Adams YouTube channel. Without wasting time, let's get started. So right here I've gone ahead to draft these basic bodies. I've gone ahead to take the darts, and right here I'm taking the measurements, and I'm also adding back the darts. So if you don't know how to go about it, I have previous videos that show you step by step how to do this. So right now I'm going to move ahead to working on the exact thing for this video, and this is determining it's like an off kind of because of the sleeve. You see that you have a yoke where the yoke will be ending. That means as if we were drafting an off shoulder kind of. So I'll be determining where I want, and I think I want about 5.5 there, but I don't want up to 6. I don't want something that would expose. I want something quite modest. So I went ahead to measure that, and I'm ruling it right as you're seeing here. Moving on this new line, I'm going to go ahead to mark half of the nipple to nipple measurements that we did on the other. I'm going to go ahead to extend it to make this new line, and on the left I'm going to go out by half of an inch, while on the right I'm going to do 1.5 inches. So I'm going to be adjusting that other side, so we'll be ignoring the first one, the one that connects into the armhole, and follow this new one. I hope you understand what I mean. Now we're going to move ahead to the back piece, and also we're going to be doing this real fast. So I'll go ahead and follow the lines for the front piece and extend it for the back. So right here I'm going ahead to take half of an inch in, and that would serve as the back slope to prevent bulging on the zipper area. I'm going ahead also to take the dart for the back, which I'll later close up because I really don't like having that on the back piece. But in case you want to add back to yours, feel free to do that. So at this point I've gone ahead to take the measurements out. So what I'm doing next is to also get the 5.5 that I marked on the front piece. I've gone ahead to mark that out. So right here at the point of that back slope, I'm taking 1.5 inches for the zipper. Make sure that you're taking the measurement right from that slope that we made. So once this is done, I'll go ahead to work on the back neckline. So I'm coming down by 1 inch for the depth, and I'll connect it to the 3.5 inches neck width. I'm also going to create like an opening around this area, so I'm going to extend this nipple to nipple upwards as so, and from this point I'm going to connect it just as you are saying with the help of the curve rule. Note that I didn't extend it to the chest line, but if you don't mind exposing so much, you can actually even come below the chest line. It all depends on your preference. So at this point we're done with the drafting for the back, and I'm going ahead to cut it out. So I'm starting from the waistline. Remember that I said I don't want that on the back, so I'm going to go ahead to close this up, then I'll continue cutting. But if you want that on yours, just leave it and cut exactly without closing up the dart. So right at this point we're done with the cutting for the back. We're going to move ahead to the front piece. So right here is the front piece. I'll go ahead to mark 3 inches for the neck depth and connect it to the 3.5 inches for the neck width. So once this is done, so now I can go ahead and start cutting from the waistline. Please take note of how I'm cutting it. Make sure that you take note of the part that I actually zigzagged out. That means you'll not be cutting right on that line. kindly note that this center piece, that's the center front, when you want to cut it on the fabric, it's going to be on fold. So I'm indicating this on the paper. And at this point, we've come to the end of the cutting for the front piece as well. So now we can move ahead to go and cut out all these pieces right on the fabric. But for the yoke, that's for the front and the back yoke, I'll be using chantilly net to cut this out. But for the other piece, I'll be using the Ankara fabric. So here's the back pieces. So I went ahead to add about 2 inches to the side. But for every other part, that's the upper part and the lower part, I went ahead to add half of an inch for joining. And here is also the front piece. Remember I said that this center front will be called to unfold, and also the side boss, that's the side front. So I also went ahead to add 2 inches on the side, and on other parts half of an inch. Here's the chantilly net. I'd actually gone ahead at this point. I actually went ahead to cut the sleeves. Here are the sleeves. So on fold I have about 4 inches, and I started from that 5.5 that I cut out for the upper piece of the bodies. Then from there I measured the full length of the sleeve, which is about 26 inches. So here's the piece that I'll be using for the pleats around that chest region, and I have 7.5 inches in length. The width, I actually have 2 pieces for this so that we'll join it together. I'll give you the measurement later on in the video. As I said earlier, I also went ahead to use the chantilly net to cut out the back and the front yoke. So here are all the pieces that I'll be working on. I went ahead to cut lining for every part of for the front and the back pieces, and I went ahead to iron paper stay on the lining piece to give it a bit of stability. So right here, I'll bring in the side front to meet with the center front, and I'm going to go ahead to start pinning down right from the top to the bottom. I went ahead to notch the bust line and the under bust line, as you can see here, so that they all align. I'll do that for the other side as well. Once I'm done pinning, I'll take this over to the sewing machine to stitch this down, and once I'm done stitching, I'll bring it back to show us what it looks like. So right here are the lining pieces, and I'll also go ahead and repeat the same process here on it. I'll stitch from top to bottom. So right here is the back yoke. I went ahead to have half an inch all around, and right here is the front yoke. I also went ahead to add half an inch all around. I'm going to bring in bias tape to go ahead and sew on the neckline so as to turn it inside out. So I'm going to do this for the front piece, and I'll also go ahead and do this for the back piece as well, or rather the back pieces as well. I'll also bring in the 2 pieces that we're using for the pleats around the chest line. I'll go ahead and join it together so that it becomes one piece. So I've gone ahead to use bias to finish the necklines on both the front and the back pieces, and here's what it looks like. So right here are the 2 pieces that we joined earlier, and I went ahead to hem the bottom so that part will be neat. So after this is done, I'll go ahead and take the total measurement of this, and I have about 110 inches. I first measured 60 inches, then I went ahead to measure another 50 inches. So once this is done, I'll go ahead to start pleating. And how you determine what you need is by measuring your round shoulder measurement. The round shoulder measurement I'm working with here is 43 inches. So I'll go ahead and pleat till I have about 43 inches. So right here we have the lining piece for the front, and here is the main fabric. So I'll go ahead and notch this part area so that when we press open, it will lay very flat. So this is what the front piece looks like. Right at this point, I'll go ahead and bring in the yoke for the front and notch the center. I'll also go ahead to notch the center of the fabric. Now I can go ahead to bring in the pleated parts, and here it is. So I'm going to get the center of this also. So I'll place this directly on the bodies, that's the front bodies first. Kindly note that I'm placing the center of the pleat to the center of the bodice, and I'm going to go ahead to pin down till I get to this edge. But I'm going to go ahead to leave half of an inch. That's where we'll be attaching the sleeve to the bodice. So I'll go over to this other side and also go ahead to pin. I'll also leave about half of an inch where we'll be able to place the sleeve to the bodice. So I'll bring in the sleeves now because we can't fully achieve this style without attaching the sleeve to the bodice right now. While pinning the sleeve to the bodice, note that I am not completely pinning it to the end of the bodice, that's to the side of the bodice, because we'll still be turning the side with lining. So I'm going to be leaving about 1.5 inches before the end. I hope you understand this. So I'll take this to the sewing machine and go ahead to stitch it down. Once the sleeve has been attached to the bodice, right on the part where the sleeve was attached to the bodice, place a notch on that on the pleats, just as you see me doing here. So we can move back to bring in the front yoke and place it right at the center where we notched. Place the yoke directly on it. Make sure that the right side of the yoke is facing the bodice, just as you're seeing me doing. So you go ahead and pin down. Stop at the point where the sleeve was attached to the bodice. Then move on to the second side and repeat the same process. Stop at the point where the sleeve was attached to the bodice. I'll take this to the sewing machine to stitch it down. So this is what it looks like after I was done stitching. So I'd gone ahead to stitch the yoke, the pleated parts, the main bodies, and even the sleeves. I also went ahead to aim the top of the sleeve to prevent it from fraying. I did that for both sleeves. So the next thing to do is to place this pleat right on top of the sleeves, but because the edge is very rough, we have to go ahead to use a bias tape to tape it. At this point, I've gone ahead to use a bias tape on this pleat. I'll go ahead and show you how I did this when I'm working on the second sleeve, so just go ahead with me. So where folding this bias tape inwards, like you see, I'm going to go ahead and place it on the sleeve that we already have. So you can see how I'm doing it. So place the bias inwards, just as we use bias to fold in the neckline. So you're going to pin it right on the sleeve. So when you get to where the sleeve ends, that's where the bias tape should end also. This is what it looks like on the other side. Yeah, so now you can go ahead and stitch it down. Looking at this, you could see that I already went ahead to use lining to turn out this piece without attaching the pleats first. So I went ahead to loosen it so that I can attach the pleat. So the pleat has to be attached first before the yoke, then before the lining, to turn everything inside out. So right here, I'm going ahead to place the pleat right on it. And note that the pleat will extend right into the zipper region. So I'm placing the pleat on it. I'll go ahead and stitch it down. Then I can go ahead to bring in the yoke and place the yoke right on it. When you're working yokes like this, you need to have indicated where your yoke would start and end on paper, so you can also notch it right on the fabric that you're using. So I already went ahead to do that. So right here I'm using the pins to hold this down so that I can go ahead to stitch it down. So once this is done, I can now bring in the lining piece. When you're attaching the lining, you want to make sure that the fabric, both the chantilly net and the bodice, is laying flat so that everything comes out perfect. So I'm going to go ahead to stitch the upper parts and the two sides. Actually, I didn't loosen the side stitch. So this is what it looks like after I was done stitching. So right here, you can go ahead to run a top stitch on this part where the zipper is going to be. The next thing to do is to join this piece of the back to that of the front on the shoulder line. So I'm going to go ahead to use pins to hold this down and then stitch it down. So now we can proceed to work on the other side. So please kindly pay attention in case there's a part that you didn't really get in the previous one. So now we're going to be working on the second part. So right here is the sleeve. Remember that we're going ahead to hem. At the point where we attach the sleeve to the bodies, I've gone ahead to place a notch there, so it will be easy to stitch the pleats right on top of the sleeve. Of course, before we can stitch the pleats on top of the sleeve, we have to go ahead and attach a bias to turn that part of the pleat to make it smooth. So I'm going ahead to attach a bias right at this point, right side facing the right side. Once this is done, I'll go ahead and run a stitch right on it, then run also a top stitch, and then fold it inside, fold it over. So once I fold it over, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the sleeve and start pinning down. Once I'm done pinning down, I'll go ahead and stitch it. This stitch will actually secure the bias tape on the pleats and also secure it on the sleeve as well. This right here is the second back piece as well as the yoke. So before you can attach the yoke, you have to first attach the pleat. So this is me attaching the pleat right on the bodies. Yes, I'm just trying to manipulate it, but first attach the pleat to the bodies, then you can go ahead and you can see that the pleat extends to the zipper area. Then you can go ahead to attach the yoke right on top of it. Once I've gone ahead to stitch it down, I will now bring in the lining. Remember that I said I didn't loosen the side stitch, so I'm going ahead to use the lining right side facing the right side, and I'll go ahead to run a stitch right on the top and right on the side of the zipper. So this is what it looks like after I was done stitching. Now that the back part is done, we're going to move to the front and we're going to bring in the lining. I'm going to go ahead and fold the lining and get the center of it and then attach it right onto the center of the bodies, just as you're seeing me doing here. I'm going to be placing the right side on right side. Remember that there's a chantilly net for the yoking between the lining and the bodies. Once I'm done pinning down, I'm going to move ahead to the sewing machine to stitch this down. And after stitching down, I'm going to go ahead to run a top stitch right on the lining piece. So the next thing to do is to close up the sides of the front. So I'm going to use the lining to do that. I'm going to also stitch with 1/2 inch on both sides of the bodies. Remember that when we're stitching the sleeve to the bodies, I said we should not sew it completely. If you had sewn it completely, you'll not be able to stitch down this side. At this point, we can see that our cloth is already taking shape, so we've gone ahead to close all the sides, and this is what it looks like. So the next thing is to bring the two back pieces together on the zipper region and go ahead and use pins to hold this down. You can as well just run a loose stitch on it. The next thing to do is to go ahead and take the measurement and stitch both pieces, that's the front piece and the back pieces on the sides. So make sure that while you're doing this, you don't have any chantilly net hanging around, so that you don't go ahead and stitch the chantilly net with the bodies. I've gone ahead to take the measurement, so I'll go ahead to stitch this down following the mark that I made here. The next thing to do is to finish the armhole region with a bias tape. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can note that you have excesses here at the side, so you're going to use the excess to sew down this bias. Once you're done with stitching this bias, make sure that you run a top stitch. This allows the bias to slip over perfectly on the other side. Right at this point, you can now go ahead to finish up these sides of the sleeve. So I'm going ahead to pin it down, then I can later stitch it up. I'll do that for the other side as well. Once this is done, of course, you can now move ahead to close up the sleeve too. Yes, so you can go ahead to stitch up the sleeve. Don't forget right side facing right side. We can go ahead and repeat the same process for the other sleeve as well. This is the second part, the other side. So I'm also going to repeat the same thing that I did on the first one here too, and I can move ahead to also use whatever I have left here to close up the sleeve. So right here I've done that, and I've also gone ahead to stitch down the lining on the waistline. So I actually went ahead to make the skirt off camera. If you like to know how I did this, I think you can refer back to any of my previous video. Yes, so right here I've gone ahead to align the center of the upper bodice to that of the lower body. So I'm going ahead to use pins to hold it down on the waistline. I'm making sure that everything aligns, the side aligns, the zipper region of both the upper and the lower bodies align as well. So you need to make sure of this. So once this is done, I'll take this to the machine and stitch it down with 1/2 inch. To ensure everything lays well, I'm going to go ahead to press this part. So this is what it looks like after I was done stitching. And I've gone ahead to iron that part down, as you can see here. So, and I've also gone ahead to insert the zipper right where it's supposed to be. This is the sleeve area after I went ahead to close it up. Thank you for seeing this video up to this point. If this is your first time here, do well to subscribe. I hope that you did find this video helpful. If you did, do not hesitate to give it a thumbs up by clicking on the like button. And if you have any question, feel free to drop it in the comment section. I'll definitely respond to you. You can go ahead to finish this part with a press button or a bra hook. So this is the finished look of this dress, right from the bottom to the back, upper part of the back, and right also to the front, extending into the sleeves as well. At this point, we've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you did find it useful. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.